Hey guys, today I've got a new phone in for you. It's the Samsung Galaxy A14 5G. If you want to buy this directly from Samsung, you can get it for $200. Although on Amazon, I've seen it pretty much constantly at around 180. If you don't get it on Amazon and you want to get it where I got it from, mine was only $40 on Metro by T-Mobile, and it's $40 because I had to sign up for a new plan. So I did that, and then I'm just not going to pay for the plan, and I'm going to wait for the phone to get unlocked in about 6 months, or maybe I'll sell it online. I'm not sure yet. But overall, it seems like a pretty crazy deal for $40. For $200, I don't know if I'd buy it. The price that it's floating at, around $10, $20 under, it's a little bit better of a deal. Considering the other phones you can get at this price point. Anyways, let's get into it a little bit. We'll start with the hardware. So starting from the top, you have one microphone. Then from the left side, you have the SIM slot tray, which also has an expandable SD card slot, which is nice. That gives you the ability to get up to 1 terabyte more in storage. On the bottom here, we've got a auxiliary jack, another microphone, a USB-C port, and then a down-firing speaker. We'll get into the speaker a little bit later. On the side, we've got a built-in fingerprint sensor that is part of the power button, and then the volume up and volume down button. On the back, we have 3 cameras, a 50 megapixel wide camera, a 2 megapixel macro, and a 2 megapixel depth camera. On the front, we have a 13 megapixel selfie camera. Honestly, the selfie camera and the wide, normal 50 megapixel camera are pretty much the only cameras worth using, in my opinion. That pretty much sums up the first look at the design on the outside and the hardware. So now let's get into the software a little bit. So this is running Samsung's One UI, which means that it performs pretty much the same in terms of how you'd expect any other Samsung to work when using the software. It's not using One UI Core, or wait, no, sorry, it is using One UI Core, so you're missing some of the features like DeX, I believe, and some other stuff, but day-to-day performance, you're probably not going to notice a difference unless you're a heavy user of all of the features of One UI. So the software is pretty performant. It's a pretty decent skin. If you've used a Samsung phone, like I said, you already know what this is like. You have access to the slide out drawer that other Samsungs have, and that's honestly my most used feature. So I like the implementation here. The skin is nothing too crazy, and going through the settings, you can easily find what you're looking for. So that sums up the software. Let's talk a little bit about the screen and speakers. So this phone is a full HD IPS LCD. It's got a 90 hertz refresh rate, and it's 6.6 inches in size. It's a pretty decent display, especially for an LCD screen. Earlier, I've looked at the TCL 40XL and a couple of Xiaomi phones. Most notably the Xiaomi Redmi 13C, which I had in about a week ago. That phone and the TCL 40XL had significantly worse screens than this, in my opinion. Primarily the auto brightness on the Xiaomi was really bad, so the screen was always dim. And then the TCL 40XL, the screen was just crazy washed out all the time, and did not make for a good viewing experience. All right, now speaking of the speakers, it's just one loudspeaker on the bottom. It's not a dual speaker phone, but it gets decently loud. I think it's actually a pretty good speaker system. I've had dual speaker phones with worse sound. For example, the TCL 40XL that I was just talking about. So I think as long as you're not covering this speaker up, you'll have a pretty good experience with the speakers. And again, for the price, this is pretty good. So that sums up the screen and the speakers. Let's just talk a little bit about the camera. So I already mentioned the camera specs in terms of the megapixels. Overall, this phone's camera is what you'd expect at around this price point. I personally like the way that the Xiaomi I reviewed earlier, the 13C, I liked the way those pictures looked, but this does have some of that Samsung processing. So I'll just show you a couple of pictures and some videos that I took, and you can make up your decision for yourself. What you doing? Just jamming? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Hey. Here's a video with the selfie camera on the Galaxy A14 5G. I think it sounds pretty alright. I'm going to cover the microphones and talk a little bit. You can see, you probably can't hear much. Now the bottom one's uncovered. Now the top one's uncovered. Now both are uncovered. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the battery on this phone. So this has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, and it can do 15 watt charging, which is not very fast today, but you know, it is what it is. But overall, I think this phone has pretty phenomenal battery. I didn't find myself reaching for a charger very often when I was using it. As you can see here, with my usage on AccuBattery, I'm getting about 13 hours and 20 minutes of screen on time. Now, I don't do a lot of gaming. I'm mostly browsing deal websites and watching YouTube. So if you do a lot of gaming, expect this to be significantly lower. But if you're using this phone, you probably aren't going to be doing a lot of heavy gaming because it just is not a good experience on this phone. And I can show you that now. This phone is running the Dimensity 700, which is getting pretty old now. A lot of phones from a year or even two ago were using that chip, TCL most notably, and Motorola. So this chip is a couple-year-old budget chip, and it's really starting to show its age. This phone also only has 4 gigabytes of RAM, at least the version that I got. I do believe there's a 6 gigabyte version and an 8 gigabyte version, but those are going to be more expensive, and at that point you are probably looking at a different phone entirely. So I got Alien Isolation running on this phone. This is my favorite game to test, and it wasn't working on a lot of phones, but I reached out to their support and they helped me figure out how to get this running on pretty much any phone by just moving some files around. Alright, I finally got Alien Isolation loaded up. I'm just gonna run around a little bit here. I'm not sure why I had to download that. I've downloaded that in the past. But you can see here it runs kind of all right. This isn't the most intense part of the map. I was playing earlier on this phone and it was a lot more glitchy. And the chip does get a little, oh there we go. You can see it kind of slowing down. Well, maybe you can't see it as well, but I can feel it with my thumb. There's a lot of lag between when I move and when it moves. Oh, you can kind of see it. Yeah. It's like a half second of delay. And it's just getting worse and worse. I assume because it's throttling. I also tried to play Genshin on this phone and it just, it did run, but is getting maybe like 6 frames per second. It was a terrible experience. So if you plan on doing a lot of gaming, especially higher end gaming, then this is not going to be the phone for you. So just keep that in mind if you get this. But if you're just watching YouTube videos and browsing the web, performance should be pretty good on this. Obviously not great here. And another thing that I've noticed is the back of this phone, it's all grooved. And when the phone heats up, your hands get a little bit sweaty, and it looks kind of gross, as you can see, but it feels really bad. It slips around. That's probably my least favorite part about the design of this phone, is even when I'm just holding it normally, the phone feels extremely slippery, which isn't usually the case for me with plastic phones. I usually prefer them, but in this case, I do not. I really don't like the finish on this phone here. So overall, this phone to me is a pretty decent buy if you get it on a carrier deal where you can get it for extremely cheap. It's got some good pros, like it's got really good battery life. It's gonna get up to Android 15, which is a lot better than some other budget phones. The camera is pretty decent, again, for the price point. But you know, it charges super slow. The screen's an LCD, not an OLED. The gaming isn't great. It's only got a single stereo, or sorry, not stereo, duh. It's only got a single speaker, and obviously, like I already mentioned, it's got 2 cameras that are pretty much trash. I really wish that smartphones in the budget segment would just use 1 camera, because it's already only 1 camera that's good, so they may as well spend that extra $5-10 that they use on these crappy cameras to make that one really good. Get a little less electronic waste and give a better experience for its users. Another con, I guess, is that it's a U drop, or I guess in this case it's more of a water drop notch, not a U or a V. For me, I don't really personally mind that all that much. I actually use the A34, which does also have that same cutout, so I don't really mind there. But if you do, you know, that might be something that bothers you. But it's a budget phone, it's gonna look budget, the bezels are thick, but overall the screen's pretty good, camera's pretty good, battery life's really good. For your kid or your parents or anyone that doesn't really game, I think that this phone is gonna be plenty good, provided you set your expectations at the price. All right, thanks guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have any questions, please ask me. If I said anything wrong, please correct me. If you liked it, please hit subscribe, give me the thumbs up, hit the bell. Let me know what phones you'd want to see in the future, if you have any. All right, thanks guys.